teenage boy stood in the middle of a city bus, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear, and called a row of veterans sitting quietly in their seats baby killers. The bus went dead silent. Every passenger froze, and then one old soldier, gray-haired, slow-moving, medals pinned to his jacket, stood up, walked calmly down the aisle, and sat right next to the boy. Not to argue, not to shame him, but to tell him the truth. What happened in the next 10 minutes changed that teenager forever. And honestly, it might change you too. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. The kind of gray November day where the sky feels heavy, and people on public transit mostly stare at their phones or out rain-streaked windows. The number 14 bus was packed, office workers heading home, a few college students, a mother with a stroller, and near the back a group of 5 older men. They wore matching jackets, dark navy blue, with patches on the sleeves and small American flags stitched near the collar. They were veterans, members of a local VFW post, heading home from a memorial service for a fellow soldier who had passed away that week. Their names were Bill, Raymond, Hector, Tom, and Gerald. Average age, 71. Between them, they had served in Vietnam, the Gulf War, and the early years of Afghanistan. They were quiet men, tired in the way that only time and memory can make a person tired. They were not looking for attention. They were not looking for trouble. They were just going home. His name was Marcus, 17 years old, junior year, tall and lanky with a hoodie pulled up over his ears and earbuds dangling around his neck. He had got on the bus with 2 friends, laughing loudly, clearly in the mood to perform for an audience. Marcus was smart, his teachers said so, but he carried a kind of chip on his shoulder that teenagers sometimes develop when they feel the world owes them an explanation. He had been watching a documentary in his AP history class that week about the Vietnam War. He had seen footage that disturbed him deeply, and rather than sitting with the discomfort and asking questions, he decided to be loud about what he thought he had learned. He spotted the veterans' jackets, he nudged his friend, and then, in a voice pitched just high enough to carry, he said it. "Look at that, baby killers on the bus, real American heroes." A few passengers gasped softly, one woman closed her eyes. The 5 veterans heard every word. Raymond clenched his jaw, Tom stared straight at the floor. Gerald, the oldest of the group at 78, simply looked out the window. Bill Dawson was 69 years old. He had served 2 tours in Vietnam between 1968 and 1970. He had come home to a country that did not want to hear what he had been through. He had spent decades rebuilding himself, his marriage, his faith, his sense of purpose. He was not a perfect man, but he was a patient one. Bill stood up slowly. His knees made their complaints known. He picked up his small paper bag from the memorial service and he walked the length of the bus aisle, steady and unhurried, while every passenger watched. He stopped at the row where Marcus and his friends sat. One of Marcus's friends immediately looked away. The other slid toward the window. Marcus lifted his chin, ready to double down. Bill did not tower over him. He did not cross his arms. He simply looked at the empty seat beside Marcus, gestured to it politely, and said, "Do you mind if I sit here for a minute, son?" It was such an unexpected question that Marcus, caught completely off guard, just nodded. Bill sat down. He set his bag on his lap. He looked straight ahead for a moment, and then he began to speak in the quietest, most even voice Marcus had ever heard from a grown man. "I heard what you said back there," Bill started. "And I want you to know I'm not angry. I was angry once, a long time ago, at people who said the same thing, but I got past it. You know what I learned? Most people who say things like that have never been given the real story, so I'd like to give it to you if you'll let me." Marcus said nothing. He was listening. "I was 19 when I got drafted," Bill continued. 19, same as you will be in 2 years. I didn't choose to go. I didn't have the option to say no. In my neighborhood, if you got that letter, you went. I left behind my mother, my little sister, a girl I was hoping to take to prom, and I went to a jungle 12,000 miles away because my government told me my country needed me there." Bill's voice stayed calm throughout. He did not speak with bitterness. He spoke with the measured certainty of a man who had made peace with his past. "I saw things over there that I will carry until the day I die. I also saved lives. My buddy Raymond back there, he would have bled out in a rice paddy in 1969 if I hadn't dragged him to cover. Was that the act of a killer? Raymond's 3 kids and 7 grandchildren might have something to say about that." He paused. The bus hummed. Rain tapped lightly on the windows. "We were kids sent to do an impossible thing in an impossible place. Most of us had no idea what we were walking into. We were not monsters. We were not heroes in the storybook sense. We were just young men trying to survive and keep each other alive. And then we came home and people called us exactly what you just called us, and we had nowhere to put that pain." Marcus had stopped looking out the window. He was looking directly at Bill now. His posture had changed entirely. The performance was gone. Bill reached into his paper bag and pulled out a folded program from the memorial service. He smoothed it open and held it so Marcus could see the photograph printed inside. A young man in uniform, smiling, no older than 20. "This is Danny Kowalski. We buried him this morning. He made it back from 2 wars, raised a family, coached Little League for 15 years, and died last week at 74 from complications related to exposure to Agent Orange, a chemical the government sprayed on us over there. He never stopped fighting, right up until the end." Bill refolded the program carefully and placed it back in the bag. "I'm not asking you to agree with every war this country has ever fought. You have every right to question those decisions. That is exactly the kind of country we were trying to protect, one where a 17-year-old kid can speak his mind freely on a city bus. What I am asking is that you separate the policy from the person. The men in those jackets did not make the decisions that sent them to war. They just had to live with the consequences." The bus came to a stop. Several passengers had tears in their eyes. The mother with the stroller was watching Bill with an expression of profound gratitude. Marcus sat very still for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, quieter, more real. "I didn't think about it like that," he said. "I'm sorry, I genuinely am." Bill nodded slowly. He was not performing forgiveness, he was simply giving it. "You're young," Bill said. "Being young means you still have time to learn the difference between outrage and understanding. One of them just makes noise, the other one actually changes things." He stood up, steadied himself on the seat in front, and walked back down the aisle to his friends. Raymond gave him a look. Bill gave a small shrug and sat back down. Marcus turned to look at the 5 men in their navy jackets for a long moment. Then he took out his earbuds, put his phone away, and spent the rest of the ride in silence. 3 weeks later, Marcus wrote a paper for his AP history class about the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. He got an A, but more importantly, he drove to the local VFW post on a Saturday morning with his mother, asked to speak with Bill Dawson, and shook the man's hand properly. There is something Bill Dawson did on that bus that most of us struggle to do in our daily lives. He chose patience over pride. He chose education over anger. He chose connection over confrontation. And in doing so, he did not just change one teenager's mind. He reminded every person on that bus that behind every label, every jacket, every bumper sticker, and every slogan, there is a full human story waiting to be told. If this story moved you, please take a second to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Soul Relief Stories for more moments that remind us what we are truly capable of when we choose understanding over judgment. Leave a comment below, tell us about a time someone changed your perspective with nothing but patience and truth. We read every single one. Thank you for being here.